Auric Waves. Yeah. So the class Auric Waves is, we're doing a whole series on the aura, and Auric programming was kind of the primary piece, but it's actually tied to several different other aspects of the aura. The Sound Fun class dealt with the structure of the aura. You could say the part of the aura that has to do with structure itself. So your anatomy, like the organs, the liver, the kidneys, not so much how they function, but the structure itself. And the structure itself will dictate how well it can handle the energy or how well it performs. So Auric Waves is about the physiology, the movement, the processes of the body, and also processes of the emotions, processes of the mind, and like rhythms of the body. It's just movement, a lot of different aspects with this. So it also would be dealing with the generation of lower emotions, or what we would call homeostatic emotions, or physiological emotions. Anger being a perfect example, or frustration. A lot of times we think about it as a point of view from the emotions, or from the mental processes, the thing that happened, when a lot of times you have physiological responses to something that generates a lower emotional response, that's based on some of the instinctual responses, to help motivate you to take action in the environment, to be able to thrive, right? And so then it starts to come up as an emotion, and then you process it as a feeling, and then eventually, you think, God, what is going on? What happened? And so a lot of times we think of the things like anger, that it's something that you have to resolve in the mind. There's something that you have to resolve back, like with a past event or something going on with you, when really it's more of a physiological reaction to something that's going on. If you stick 10 people in a situation and something happens, they're all going to have different physiological responses. And so to break this down even further, we look at it from the aspect of, there's like these different parts within the auric waves. There's these different parts of the aura. There's the dream aura, there's the pain aura, there is the primal or primitive part of the aura, and then there's a thing called like the mental reflective aura, which is tied a bit more to the intellect and to conflict, right? And so the dream aura has to do with you processing emotions and thoughts and things that have happened, things in your past week, past day, past 10 years, whatever it is, and you're processing this on an unconscious level. So the dream aura has to do a lot with your unconscious motivations, right? The pain aura has to do with physical pain, emotional pain, mental pain, and a thing that I would call like karmic pain, where we have patterns that come up in our lives that, as much as we try to wrestle with them, we really don't break some of these patterns, and so that would be karmic pain. So how we deal with pain, how we respond to pain, the intensity of pain also is dictated by this particular piece of the auric wave, or the functional part of your aura. And then you have the primitive part, or the primal part. This has to do with things that were set in motion when you had your first experience with whatever it is. So a lot of this comes from our early years, like our childhood years, and things get set in motion, right? Things get set in motion, and then what happens is, emotionally, mentally, we just keep duplicating these aspects over and over again. As much as they cause us suffering, we keep duplicating them because they're just in motion, until you really put attention on it and break that process, break what it is. um, those things stay in motion. So for example, like I tell the story a lot of times, where as a little kid, I was probably 4, and I lived in a small little town and on a small little block, and my friends were just the kids that lived on the block. And a couple of the kids who I played with, they'd always come and take my toys. So I had to, as a 4-year-old, I had to go, is my toys more important, or somebody to play with more important? And so, being 4 and not having the cognitive processes of an adult, and you make this decision, well, that's just what friends are. Friends are people who come and just take things from you, and you just tolerate it because, you're friends. So that got set in motion, and going into my teens and my 20s, most of my friends that I chose were people who would take things from me, or undermine me, knock my feet out from under me. And it took a lot of effort to go through and break that pattern, right? And so once I did, all of that stopped. But it's because I made a decision when I was young, this is what life was. And then that primal part of the aura just goes, okay, and just keeps duplicating it over and over and over again. So when we have things like trauma or a traumatic event or some sort of conflict like that, where you just make this decision, well, I guess this is just the way life is, or, it's not like you're choosing it, but you're having to, you're having to make sense out of something and survive in this little situation the best that you can. And, you get through it. But what happens is then it keeps repeating over and over and over and over again. And so that's not necessarily karmic. It's a primal part of your aura. And we all have very, very primitive and very primal parts of our aura that are things that are not even of our choosing. It could be genetics, could be environment, could be cultural. Um, all these things play an influence that we then duplicate as we grow up. And then the mental reflective is, it's like it's another way of saying too much intellect, not enough intuition, or another way of saying is psychosomatic. You are at odds with the environment, you're at odds with the things going on, you're at odds with your body. The body and mind are not connected, right? They're separate. And even though they're functioning, there is a disconnect between the two. And again, that also causes actually significant problems or significant suffering. So when we go through and we treat this aspect of the Auric waves, we're actually treating 4 aspects, and then we'll go through and problem solve the lower emotions. And we break it down to a list of different emotions like anger, frustration, like basic levels of fear, things like this, and we'll go through and eradicate that, but after you've treated this part of the aura. And then on top of that, as we've been doing with the auric programming and all the other auric classes, is those 49 aspects of the aura. All of those will be addressed in protocols utilizing these 4 aspects of the aura. So the idea is that when you're working these different levels of the aura, be it from the Sandalphon class and then the auric waves, and then at some point we'll be doing a thing about the cognitive processes and the directions, which is the dynamics of the aura. And then you tie it in with the auric program, the intuition and healing the past, and then the soul rays. You're hitting from the basic structure all the way to the aspect that is the most spiritual aspect of yourself. And by going through and working this whole aspect, you take the aura from being driven by your lower nature and being a byproduct of your environment or your conditioning, and you put it under the direction and control of the soul. And not only do you do that, but by working these aspects like this and doing that full spectrum approach, you're spiritualizing your lower nature. You're spiritualizing the most primal parts of yourself. The parts that have to do with being in a body and being in a form, and your genetic line, and the whole nine yards. And so by going through and working these aspects, it makes physical healing, psychological healing, healing of patterns, whatever you might be addressing, so much easier, because the aura is the energetic mold or blueprint that the body, the emotions, and the mind follow. And so as we change that energetic mold or blueprint, it becomes easier to heal the body. It becomes easier to heal the emotions. It becomes easier to heal those old traumatic things in relationships, or things that happened when we were young, or last year, or whatever it was. And so it makes symptom-oriented approaches much more effective and much easier. Sometimes symptom-oriented approaches work, but a lot of times they don't, or they don't last very long. And part of it is, if we look at it from an energetic point of view, is what is going on in the aura. So we have gone through and like deconstructed the aura, looked at it mechanically every step of the way, every little nuance. And so by going through and changing the energetic mold and blueprint, you almost get to kind of rewrite the things that have been happening and create things from a new place. You undo all the momentum of all the things that have happened in the past, all the water under the bridge, all the conditioning, all the bad choices, and you go, okay, let's reboot. Let's go in a new direction. Let's undo all the decisions that I made when I was 5, or when I was 10, or when I was really under a lot of stress, or when I was going through a divorce or a breakup, or whatever it was, quitting a job. And you come from a place of where you're at now. And the reason to do this is not just healing, but to have the cognitive ability to realize your true nature. And it's the thing that we're here for, is to really realize our nature, and then interact in our lives and our experiences from who we really are, rather than just being on autopilot and just having things happen to us over and over again. And so the auric waves is a very important part of the or the functional part of the aura, the physiological, basically the movement in the aura. And it will have a big impact on emotions, especially lower emotions. Those emotions that, as much as you try, they don't make any sense. Like, you try to go through and work out some past thing, and you're like, oh, there's anger there, but I don't know why, or I can't tap into it. It's because it's physiological. And well, I mean, I think you get it. So, yeah.